terms of these changes that are happening in our world and in our lives is to recognize that God made this statement in the midst of great changes. In the book of Deuteronomy, which is quoted from Hebrews 13, 5 and 6, which we're going to read in a moment or two, it is a time of great change. Here are the changes that are going to take place, and I'm just kind of giving you a brief overview so you understand. The changes is that Israel, the nation of Israel that's been wandering around in a wilderness for 40 years, being fed every day, being, provided for, seeing God in a cloud and in a fire, and all of that, is going to go over into a promised land, a new land, with people, and there's going to be a transition from being taken care of to you're going to have to take care of yourself. You're going to get your land, and you're going to have to take care of, there's things you're going to have to do in clearing out the land, which God tells them they're going to have to do. But it is into the promised land, so you've got that incredible change. Also, there's going to be a change in leadership. We're going to go from Moses, who has been leading them for 40 years, to this new guy, Joshua. So in this major change, and going from the fact that you're seeing God in kind of a physical way, and in the provisions of God in the wilderness, to this other way, and now God is not so apparent. Your old leader is gone. You're in a new land. Your manna is gone. Miracles are gone, those everyday miracles, and suddenly your shoes are going to start to fall, rot, and your clothes, you're going to do all the things that were taken care of and provided for. So that's a major change. And in that context, Joshua is told by Moses, God is telling you, I will never leave you or I'll never forsake you, even though you're not going to obviously see me in the same way. Now, when you move to the book of Hebrews, and it's interesting, it's called the book of Hebrews because you refer back to Abraham in Genesis 14, verse 13, where it says Abraham the Hebrew. So it's referring back to these people. But in the book of Hebrews, what you're going to find is a time of incredible change. You're going to find an old covenant and a new covenant. You're going to find in times past we've spoken to you by prophets and by this ways. Now you're spoken by the very Son of God. And there are signs and wonders that support this. And by the way, there are incredible changes in this new covenant. But at the same time, the one who was the Messiah, the Jesus who walked with them and talked with them and was present with them, no longer is walking with them and talking with them and is present with them. And the tendency or the difficulty in thinking that God has left you, just like when Jesus ascended into heaven, Moses is left behind, is the tendency for the people to say, well, let's go back. If we could go back and talk to Moses and get verification on these things, we might believe this. If we could go back to Jesus and get some verification, that we might believe this. But all of a sudden you're on your own. In a sense, and you think, God has left me. God has forsaken me. Well, what are we to do? Because we got these new young whippersnappers. Peter, James, John, and what do they know? And then we got this guy, Apostle Paul. You talk about God's really left us and forsaken us because here's a guy who's persecuting us and now he's leader in the church. It's a very difficult time. Can you believe, what is God doing? Has God left us and has God forsaken us in that regard? So that's the thinking. And as we, brethren, have made changes and we see changes in our lives and we see changes in our world, we can also have the same kind of difficulties. So here is what God tells them in the book of Hebrews. Again, I've been referring to it. Now let's read it here in Hebrews chapter 13 and verses 5 and 6. And again, it is quoted from Deuteronomy chapter 31. But here's what the author tells us here in verse 5. Free from the love of money and be content with what you have because God has said. Now let me stop here for a moment. In the King James, it basically says, this is the way to live your life. This is the manner of life that you ought to be living. Now, brethren, let me ask you a question. It seems a bit strange that we would use money here at this point in terms of manner of life. But when we look at the changes that were made in Old Testament, in Deuteronomy, it was a change, economic change in the sense. Food was provided. Everything was provided for them. They didn't have to worry. There was no question about time off for worship and all that. That was all taken care of. But when you move into a new economic system, into the promised land, it's a difficult thing. And then people can, when they start making money, it's amazing how some can make it real well and others don't have the money is like a sieve. It just goes right through their hands and it's gone. And of course there were stipulations and directions in terms of God had statutes because every 7th year, Jubilee year, etc. So there's problems that they're going to face. And people are going to wonder who have lost everything because of Slick Willie. Well, you've left me and forsaken me. Back here you were taking care of me. And now what's happened here? Why are we here? Why are we facing these difficulties? The same thing would happen in the book of Hebrews. Back there, Lord, we had all these traditions. We knew exactly. We had all this structure. And now you're talking about grace. Now you're talking about reconciliation. Now you're talking... and Lord, you've involved the Gentiles. Thank you. It's a book of Hebrews, but the Gentiles are included. And if Paul wrote this book, what in the world is he thinking? He writes a book to the Hebrews, but, it's inclusive about that. And it presents a difficulty for us. And depending on the kind of Gentile you got in there. Let's look at it. We didn't have a problem electing an Irish president, a German president, a Dutch president,
a Catholic president,
and even a Catholic president. Yeah. We had a problem with the Gentile, though. Yeah. Let's just put it, we're just being frank. We had more difficulty with that. It is an issue. And we can say, God, have you left us and have you forsaken us and all of that? We can have those thoughts. We kind of have to focus, and that's what Deuteronomy is telling us there, where it ought to be. So it says, your manner of life, how you conduct your life in life, because God says, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we say with confidence, Lord is my helper. Mac read that in Psalms 118. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? So when we look at the issues that face us in the future, by the way, who of us do not have some anxiety about this financial cliff? If you have Social Security, how will that affect you? Whether or not you have Medicare, whether or not you're going to be able to get what you need to take care of your health situations. I have concerns. My thinking and socialized medical health, I think in terms of it's going to be like the DMV. And I don't feel good about that. Because when people have power, government has a way. In government of doing things, we have a job. And by the way, I'll get to you when I get to you. That's the way the DMV is. And when private enterprise, if you don't do it, then you don't have business.
Feeling the blues today or tired of life already? Do you have questions about life or need spiritual advice? We can help. Log on to worldwidechurchofgod.com or wcgfairfield.blogspot.com and stay connected to reality. The Worldwide Church of God in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto are located in the San Francisco Bay Area, regarded as the most prosperous region in the United States. we believe Jesus Christ when he proclaimed in Matthew 6:24 that serving God is more important than serving mammon. We welcome everyone to come and worship and fellowship every Saturday at the times listed on your screen and on our website, worldwidechurchofgod.com.